Okay, here's my Facebook Live. Please share this far and wide, referencing SHARON, GALE, DROGYNE, Nathaniel Harris, and most importantly, Elisa and Gabriel. Please share this, guys. And don't worry, be happy. Okay, let's see if we can get this right at the beginning. Sorry, guys, like that. I'm just a bit of a dinosaur. I'll just move this over here. Oh, home. Put the kettle on. Right, this is worth it, I promise you. And please listen to the end. Let's see if we can make this full screen. It takes a while. And there's fireworks going off everywhere. Okay. Sorry about the fireworks. You know what day it is. Right, I'm going to try not to make this. I'm going to try not to mention two things. One is the bogeyman, like Halloween, and the other is the C19. But I will just mention, and people can rewind. Like if somebody can give me a 5x5 for audio. I wish I could find where you make this large. But anyway, hello. We can rewind this. Like the last one, I think had 2,500. No, the one before had 2,500 views. The last one maybe 1,500. The view counts don't mean anything. I've published. I released 3 audio recordings, or video and audio recordings, with Brian Hurl. And the second one has jumped around from 5,000 views to 12 and back again in the space of 2 weeks on YouTube. So this whole reality is oh yay, Christy, hello, good, we've got sound. Right, now if I could just make this large, I can't, right, doesn't matter. So I'm going to try and keep it fairly light-hearted. I'm feeling vulnerable and not intellectual, but I do just want to report, like my children give me, I don't watch mainstream media, but my children give me reports. And in Ireland, in the last couple of days, there was a man shot his brother and his father over a land dispute. And that's as old as the hills in Ireland, like inheritance, you know, the field. You see the popes kissing the land, and the Irish at one point were the highest home-owning nation in Europe, because for an Irish person, you have a bit of land and you build your house, you know. And, you know, when that goes wrong, which it often does, and there's skullduggery, which there often is. So it's just in the Irish news that a boy killed his brother and his dad over an inheritance issue. The more tragic thing is that a mother killed her child and then herself. There's the fireworks. Oh my goodness, but at least there's not hordes of children dressed as witches coming to the door, believing it's fun, you know, which I would allowed my children to do in my ignorance. So yeah, trick-or-treating is forbidden, verboten in Ireland. We're on level 5 lockdown. We've got the most intense, we've got the most intense lockdown conditions in Europe. I think Spain is not far behind. Hello, team. Hello, my darling. I think Spain's still got fascism in their psyche. I lived in Gibraltar for 3 years, from 1964, was it? Something like that. Anyway, General Franco was in power in Spain, and the border was closed between Spain and Gibraltar, although my father managed to breach that. But towards the end of his reign, we could go to La Linea for haircuts and things. I don't know why my mother was quite adventurous. She's still alive, 86, something. Yeah, 1933. Anyway, I think she's 86. But she used to take us to La Linea for haircuts. But like we had to be really aware of the fascist sort of, if General Franco or any authority figures were there, we had to, be very well behaved. So the Spanish, as much as I love that culture, but they revert very quickly to fascism. And my beloved Lanzarote is just, oh my goodness, my daughter just came back from there. But now in order to travel there, you have to have a COVID test first and get into the whole track and trace system. So I'm not going to talk about that because it's talked to death. I put up a funny video called Don't Worry, Be Happy. And really it's getting to the stage where people can't see that they're being conned and manipulated and herded. Like even the national school, like the primary school that my children attended, it's got these barriers that reminds me of cattle herding. Like I've talked about, I'm not going to discuss this, right? But my family has a farm, Rainbow Farm, right? And there's what you call a cattle crush. And so it's this thing where the cows are forced into and they can't escape. And then you close it at the front. And they used to use it to artificially inseminate them. It was awful, right? Or whatever else they're doing, branding them or whatever. And then only when the gate is opened can they pass through the other end. And then when I go down to the national school, even though in Ireland they're pretty good about children 13 and under are not obliged to wear masks, even though many shops are making them. Not making, that's the wrong word, but like, but in the playground there's all these barriers, like what do you call them? Like you have at protests. Anyway, and just the children are cordoned off to be released in sections. And so I don't have, literally, if people cannot see, it's like I'm not going to waste too much energy trying to force my opinion on other people, and that's probably part of why I haven't been on Facebook much, is because I go to town and I see at least 80% of people, and I feel like, what is the point? Who is listening? Who is listening? Hello, I have a day off. Okay, good. Right, so the thing I want to address, so it's Halloween and I don't like that time of year, but I just shared a video, and I think if there's any theme to this live stream, it's that we can get on with the most unlikely people. And we can agree to disagree, because the main drive of everything that's going on is for people to fall out with each other, and for disagreements and disunity. So, I'm not feeling very intelligent about all of that, but I'll give you examples. Like there's a guy called Nathaniel Harris, And he's a self-avowed warlock, or what do you call male witches? Like warlock, there's another word, wizard, right? So he probably might call himself a wizard. And he was brought up in the occult. You know, his mother's a high priestess, and his father, with magic, you know, made Superman fly in the movies or whatever, like that kind of thing. But he's a victim. He might be mad at me, I don't care really, but I think God's got his hand on him. But he really objects to the Satanists that sacrifice animals, and much more specifically children. And so he's doing his bit to expose that. He's been on Sean Atwood and Sonia Poulton on Brand New Tube, and it was the only show that was targeted. When Brand New Tube was hacked, it appeared that the main target was Sonia Poulton's show with Nathaniel Harris, who is a warlock or wizard or chaos magician, but what they would call a good one. You know, so he was exposing Kidwelly, Satanic Ritual Abuse Cult, Julian Vane of Satanic Views and Hoaxed Research, and many others, and saying that they only caught a fraction of the coven. But he's done a video today that finally just took the fear out of Halloween. And like, we used to celebrate it as children. My mother used to do apple bobbing and sixpences and, you know, string apples on strings and apples in bowls of water, and it was all great fun, you know, and sixpences hidden, and like, we didn't know, you know. And I dressed my children up and took them trick-or-treating. Not so much my boys, I'd kind of woken up a bit by then, but my daughter in America, and so on and so forth. But he's done a video walking through graveyards and stuff, and he demystified it for me, whether he intended to or not. And he talked about spiritists, I don't know what you call them, people that like to contact the dead. And I know my mother, who's 86, my maths is so bad, 87 now. Her godmother and I think her grandmother used to attend a spiritualist church, I think it was called, where a normal part of proceedings was to contact the dead, you know, and I understand that instinct. It's in the Bible, right? King Saul went to a witch, a medium, and said, please call up the spirit of Samuel, the prophet, who's died, because I have to consult him. I have to know whether I'm going to win this war or not. And so the medium does as he asks, right? He's the king, like, what you can do, you know. So she calls up the dead spirit of Samuel, and that dead spirit responds, but says, you were instructed by God, don't consult the dead. And because you've disobeyed that, you're going to lose the war tomorrow, and probably your life, and definitely your kingdom. You know, so in a way, it confirms sometimes that the dead can be reached, but it's not advisable. But I totally understand, like, when my sister was, in my, you know, belief, murdered, for about at least 24 hours, well, I'll tell you, like, my niece stayed in my house after the funeral, and in the early hours of the morning, I thought somebody had got up and was smoking downstairs. Now, I'm a smoker, but it was such a heavy odor, like wafting up the stairs, that even I, as a smoker, thought, right, wow, somebody's got up and they're downstairs smoking. And I went and looked, and they weren't. And then my niece reported the same thing, and then reported smelling Fiona's perfume. And it honestly felt like Fiona was still hovering between, you know, death and death, or death and departure. So it's kind of a mystery. And I do have a sense that when you grieve somebody, like another friend of mine lost a baby, and it took her a year, she just was so devastated, she couldn't let go. And the Irish Catholics go to the grave and talk to the dead, you know. And so, you know, and shamans, shamans, or whatever you call them, talk about escorting the dead across. Because, and the Catholics call it purgatory, which is not in the Bible. But there's this thing about a halfway limbo kind of place, you know, and it, you know, unless you were holding off going to hell, I can't imagine that that would be a good place to be. So it's demystified. Nathaniel talking about, you know, wanting, people have that when they grieve, and if you don't go through the 5 stages of grief properly, you know, fully embrace the rage and the depression and the despair and the self-blame and self-loathing, whatever the stages are, if you don't grieve somebody properly, you can try and stay attached to them and hold them on this plane rather than saying, you know, especially if you know they know Jesus and they know their creator, then you can just release them. It's like they train you, if you work with people that are dying, they train you in how to release them. And they teach even family members to say, it's okay, you can go now. You know, so I think it's the same with those that have died, that we need to, you know, our grief is our grief, but we need to say, you can, you know, if I have any communication with you whatsoever, please, I'll be okay, you go on, you know, especially if going on is to be with Jesus, you know. I heard someone describe it once, like many people, if you imagine that heaven is a mansion, you know, just a beautiful, I don't know, mansion, that many people just come into the entrance hall and then don't feel worthy to go any further in. Anyway, like, okay, right. So this is just transitioned from being my least favourite part of the year to actually demystifying it a bit, so that people don't need to be, I wouldn't sound scared of it, but like, I know that for the Satanists, they believe it's a time when they can, you know, cast spells very effectively, and there's over 2 million on Instagram with the hashtag witches for something or other, witches for something. There's anyway, there are witches who formed a community on Instagram and have over 2 million hashtags, probably more after today. And it's filling a void, sadly, you know. And I know witches, and I probably, loosely speaking, was one before I got saved, in as much as I used to be a psychic and do tarot card readings and do runestone readings, and I worked for a channeler in Marin County called Dr. Loretta Ferrier, you know, and I used to sympathize with her when she would say, oh my God, fundamentalist Christians have just, you know, paraded outside my office or whatever, you know, like protested and stuff, little knowing that I'd probably be one of them years later. I want to say as well that Ireland was the originator of Halloween, And people need to maybe, I'm not preaching here, I promise people, but people need to maybe look at the roots of Druidism. It's not all lovely, lovey-dovey herbs and nature. You know, they used to demand a tax from the people were the poor, you know, or you know, whatever. And if they couldn't pay that tax, it's all imitation of biblical principles. But if the people couldn't pay that tax, they would demand their firstborn child, and they would have bonfires, and they would take that child and burn them. You know, burn them. They'd have like a Wiccan container and burn children that had been confiscated in lieu of unpaid taxes. And the whole thing about pumpkins was that devastated mothers would light a candle in the misguided belief that the spirit of their burned child at the Druidic festival, because of non-paid taxes, that the spirit of their burned firstborn would find its way home by seeing the lighted candle in the pumpkin, you know. So anyway, enough of that. I'm not going to stay on very long, and I haven't made notes, but there's a couple of things that I wanted to address. Was disunity. Hi Mandy, hi everybody. It's not many people, I don't give advance notice of my live stream, so like I said, my busiest live stream has had 27,000 views, but that was when my house got raided. And by the way, no news since January from the DPP. They've had a file on me based on Ricky Dearman's harassment allegations since January. And it's November tomorrow. And no news on whether there's to be a trial in Ireland based on Ricky Dearman from the UK flying over and alleging that I, amongst dozens of other people, millions of other people, have ruined his life because of his children's disclosures. So I did share that the Irish law is due to change. And maybe I'm being super sensitive and skeptical, but there's going to be Coco's law probably in place by December, whereby cyber bullying can be punished with 7 years in jail or £2,500 fine, euro fine, or both. And I'd like to think that's just for a good reason, for like genuine cyber bullying that causes youngsters to commit suicide and so on. I meant to say that the mother, there's been three murder suicides in Ireland in the last 48 hours. One is a land thing, but two, I would suggest, directly connected to COVID and possibly Tusla as well, but look, we'll see how those stories unfold. But yeah, so it's November and it's 2.5 years since I got raided, but that video has 27,000 views, probably more. I haven't checked lately. And the live before last had 2,500, and the last one maybe 1,500. I don't know. And it's not about the views. And anyway, the views are manipulated. I think I shared that about YouTube. And I don't know where that chain of thought was going. But I wanted to talk about unity and disunity. So I haven't heard any more from the DPP. And oh yeah, the Coco's law might be used, even though it's supposedly to stop youngsters getting bullied online and feeling suicidal, and even myself having death threats and horrendous lies shed abroad about me, and you know, everybody I know being contacted and told terrible. What was the latest lie they said? They told a really spectacular one lately. Oh yeah, they said I fled from England because I knew I was going to go to jail for reporting on the Hampstead case. They neglected to say or to research that I've lived in Ireland full time since 1996, and the Hampstead case only got exposed in 2015. So, you know, I think even one of the trolls said, fact check, I think she's lived in Ireland a bit longer than the Hampstead case. So, but it's much more cynical than that, you know. But I just wanted to address a couple of things to do with unity and disunity. And I'm going to just take, for example, SHARON, GALE and DROGYNE. And for those that don't follow YouTube, you know, you might not know who these people are. They are two people, including Nathaniel Harris, whose video I just shared on my Facebook. These are people that I don't fully agree with, I don't align with, but I like. I have a connection with. Who can explain that thing where you feel like connected to somebody, you feel compassion for them, you feel, what would they call that? Resonance? I don't know. I don't want to be new agey about it. But SHARON GALE, for those that don't know, she's 45. She's world travelled. She's an engineer who's worked for governments all over the world. She's swarmed by hoaxdead, besties with Danny Jones, who's a moderator for her, a hoaxdead troll, and, you know, commented on and whatever. But for some reason, she has a place in my heart. She was featured on Richie Allen and Sean Atwood. She had a baby die from vaccine damage 18 years ago, and she ended up exposing corruption in the medical industry, including various doctors and the misuse of terms like Munchausen by proxy and shaken baby syndrome. So she just, her husband was accused of murdering their vaccine, what do you call it? The baby that died from multiple vaccinations. And her husband, they tried to frame her husband for murdering the baby. And SHARON did such amazing research as a mother who had to know what happened to her baby, that she actually proved that that was not the case at all. And Big Pharma have been after her ever since, and the establishment, you know, and she's been, the tabloids dragged her through the mud. She left the country. She, you know, she's been tortured. She's been tortured and targeted. So she's got a few battle scars, and sometimes she goes on YouTube and she gets absolutely plastic drunk streams, and then deletes the streams the next day and curses and gives out, you know. But I know people on here, friends I've known on here for like 12 years, and if you saw their Facebook profiles, you would think, and I'm not going to name anybody, but you would think they were the most respectable, middle, upper class people with the most perfect life. Photographs of traveling the world in utter luxury with a picture book husband and professional, successful children. Those kind of people have contacted me in the past and said, I'm drinking a bottle of vodka every night. I don't know how to, you know, I daren't tell my husband, and I don't know how to, you know, it's like a secret. It's a secret thing. And one thing that this pandemic has done is it's, and get bullied, they must take control, delete folks. Yeah, that's true as well. Yeah, so something that the pandemic has done is it's escalated addictions, and, you know, So even though Sharon is scandalized for being drunk on live streams, yet, you know, and I think she's hurting herself a little bit with that, but there's something honest about saying I'm not coping and I'm abusing substances to try and cope with what's going on. So I'm not advocating that. But anyway, so something I didn't have to hold my hands up is when I got angry with Brian Hurl. That's a whole nother story. I can't catch everybody. You'd have to look at my YouTube channel and my blog. I just wanted to touch base and say hello, and don't worry about Halloween, and don't worry about, it is a dark spiritual time, and if there are fights going off, especially amongst your family and your loved ones, if you're getting attacked, the biggest thing that's been coming through to me is don't take offense. You know, catch and release, catch and release, catch and release every time, especially amongst your loved ones. Every time somebody says the wrong thing, does the wrong thing, wounds you, says the unforgivable, it is a season of catch and release, because otherwise, and I'm not saying that we should forgive. I'm not one of those wishy-washy Christians that was like, oh, forgive everybody. Oh, yeah, this one abused me, that one abused me. Oh, I forgive, I'm Christian. Because that's irresponsible, in my opinion, unless they've repented and been accountable. That's irresponsible. I know people who have never reported a rapist, and they've called it Christianity, that they've forgiven them. You know, like I think of one particular friend in her 60s, and her brother raped her all through her childhood, and she thinks that she's being a good Christian by never having reported him. And God knows he could be doing the same to his children, or to the babysitters, or to local children in the schools, or if he's a scoutmaster, or God knows how many other victims she has allowed or enabled to be raped like she was, in the name of supposedly being a good Christian by not reporting him. So I'm not wishy-washy like that, but I'm just saying in terms of offence, where people say something that's really hurtful, really below the belt, nasty, and that's what I'm talking about. There's a difference. So I'm all over the place. I haven't got any notes. Yeah, so Nathaniel, I've shared his video because he demystifies. He makes me realise that some people's fascination with the occult and with graveyards and with consulting the dead and with fortune tellers and mediums is a lack of having grieved for a lost one. And so I think we need to up the ante on supporting people in going through the grieving process, especially around suicide. Suicide, I don't know about the rest of the world, but in Ireland it's gone off the charts. And I think it was Ben Gilroy made a very good point that even the reported suicides are much lower than the actual ones, because people still feel ashamed of saying, yeah, my brother-in-law hung himself, or, you know, so there's still this stigma where some people will say, oh, natural causes or whatever, and no, it was a suicide. So don't know where that thought was going either. Oh yeah, Nathaniel demystified this thing. So let's try and find, let's up the ante, not just to counsel people to grieve, but actually to get honest enough. Like Sharon Gale, oh, that's where I was, right? Sharon Gale, rightly or wrongly, was brave enough to live stream even when she was drunk and cursing people and hurting people's feelings and, you know, blowing off people that were trying to help her and all the rest of it. I'm a bit fed up with people saying on her live streams, what do you think of Angela Power Disney? And saying on my comments, Oh, what about Sharon Gale? Ask her. Like, I don't know her personally, but I have compassion and admiration for the woman, because not just what she's endured, but what she has uncovered. Southall, Dr. Southall, what was his, David Southall, was it his first name? 2 doctors that she's done, extensive research on and proven and shown, and, they've been struck off, and she's exposed medical treachery. Turn the other cheek. Yeah, sometimes turn the other cheek is appropriate, but sometimes, like, it depends, because, like, I always say this, but when Jesus came to the temple, he overturned the money changers' tables. He threw them all over the place, and he actually attacked them. So sometimes it's appropriate to turn the other cheek, and sometimes you've got to get angry, you've got to get mad, right? And so Sharon Gale, this is the last I'm gonna say. I have compassion for her. I have admiration for her and the research she's done and the determination she had to get justice and get the truth about what happened to her daughter 18 years ago. And then DROGYNE, and even Nathaniel Harris, like DROGYNE and we agree on, probably less than 10%. DROGYNE originally made a couple of trolling videos about me, and I fired back calling him a tranny, and I took the piss, and then discovered he was actually a boy born with a womb and an ovary, and had grown up, maybe not knowing till later in his growing up, but grown up with that sort of hermaphrodite, genuine physical confusion about who am I, what, am I a boy or a girl, whatever. And he was professionally in ballet till the age of 24, and ballet was like a lifesaver for me. And he's very theatrical, and just there's something about, I don't know why, my first husband that very few people know about, and my first husband was a ballet dancer, had a scholarship in Covent Garden for a year. He's American, and had a scholarship in Covent Garden dancing with the Royal Ballet for a year. And bent as a 9-bob, no, like gay, but he was adorable and was there for me. And I've got some gay bays. I do feel an affinity for some people, mostly the alienated for whatever reason. And I think I know Jesus did too. I know that he wouldn't be mixing, in the synagogues with the Pharisees. He would be out amongst the wounded and the fringe and the alienated and the estranged. So DROGYNE, I started listening to the Michael Moore interview, and DROGYNE, I think after ballet, retiring from professional ballet at 24, then became things like a tax collector, a prison gardener, and then a copper, and different sort of establishment jobs. And I do wonder whether he works for the 77th Brigade now, whether he is on some kind of a retainer to professionally travel. I don't know. But the truth is, he's won my heart. I see the child in him. I see the adult in him. I see the pain of being persecuted and laughed at and belittled and humiliated. And in Sharon, I see the mother that had the unthinkable, and so many mothers I know. I've worked with a lot of mothers victims of forced adoption, child trafficking, child stealing, and so on. So I see in SHARON, you know, a mother that has survived the worst horrors. And for somebody to say that I said she'd been married to a Mossad agent, blah, 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 and no, she's been imprisoned in Thailand and possibly Libya, different countries, on suspicion of being a spy. She has shared about doing a contract in Libya, and then the Department of Trade and Industry kind of leaning on her to spy and bring back information. She's a very fascinating woman, but I haven't accused her of being a Mossad wife and other things, you know. And the bottom line I'm making is, like, I'm not the judge of Sharon Gale. I'm not the judge of DROGYNE. I'm not the judge of Nathaniel Harris. I'm just me doing the best I can. And those are people that have just touched my heart. And we need to learn to agree to disagree. Now, I'm not talking tolerance that just like, you know, like blurs all the boundaries. Anybody hurts children, I'm on them like a rash. Anybody that protects those who hurt children, you better believe it, I'm on them like a rash. But that's my litmus test for who I'm going to be compassionate towards. If you're a paedophile, I get it really hard. I'm sorry, I get it really hard to show compassion. If you're a paedophile protector, I almost get angrier, like Karen Irving, Shiva Burton, people like that. I almost get angrier at those people for who they're protecting and what they're enabling. And I suppose that, you know, as a survivor, it's partly here with me that my mother knew what was going on. My godmother knew what was going on. My auntie, the nun, knew what was going on. So many females knew on some level, to some extent of detail, what was going on, and they looked the other way. So yes, I'm sometimes rude and less than gracious with female, particularly enablers or protectors. You know, we do the best we can. So I think that's it. I haven't got any questions. You know, I hope I've answered some questions, but if I haven't, you know, shoot me some in the comments. At least one friend has lost their Facebook profile completely, which was due to be a possibility from the beginning of October. The censorship is like something else. And so I want to tell you that there is an option where you can download all your Facebook history, your photos, your links, your everything, I think. You just go to, somebody help me do it, because I'm not very techie like that. But you can go to settings, and there's a place where you download, and it takes a while, and then you get a notification saying your Facebook information is ready to download to your device. So anybody that is like nervous, I know good friends have lost profiles with years of photographic history and everything, just devastating. You know, you use Facebook thinking it was what it was originally supposed to be, connecting people, and you use it to file photo albums. I've got photo albums going back years and years and years. And if it's the only place you've got those photos, you can download, and I recommend you do. Yeah, I've got a BitChute account. YouTube took down my last but one Hampstead video, but before I even got a chance to appeal that, they put it back up. And the project I'm working on, I know I've lost a lot of support because I dare to say I need to look at Ella's part in this. I need to look at Abraham's part in this. I need to look at the whole picture again. But I'm doing a project with the help of an amazing few people where I'm going to blur the children's faces, or my brilliant assistant is going to do that. Blur the faces as was originally intended with the Hampstead disclosures in the event of getting no proper support from the police or the social services. So the big criticism was the faces were meant to be blurred. So we're blurring the faces of the original, not the police disclosures. And I still have a question. Who released the police disclosure videos? I know they became part of the evidence bundle for Ella. You know, because when you're being prosecuted, you have to have access to what the prosecution is using against you. So I know the police videos were released to Ella, but I still feel bad. Shoot me now if you want. I still feel bad about Sabine, because she took the rap for the leakage of the original disclosure videos, which is what my assistant and I are working on at the moment, and some other people helping. And Sabine was not the first person to release them online. They were not leaked by Sabine originally. And who leaked the police videos? I'm just asking, you know. So I'm in hot water with a lot of the sort of straight down the line Hampstead people, because everybody wants a happy ending where the mother's a fairy godmother and the father's a wicked villain, and the children are rescued and it's all nice and tied up with a bow and nice and tidy. It's not always like that, but if it is, I'll be the first to apologize and say I never should have questioned the mother, I never should have questioned Abraham, I never should have questioned the grandparents. But you know, just I can only be true to myself. If you don't like my way of trying to get the children safe, there's plenty of others out there. You don't need to approve of me or like me or follow my lines of investigation. And I'll just end with this, some good news, that a church in New York run by a Lebanese Australian and a Jewish Australian living in New York with a church in Times Square, they've got behind me. And they just said, look, we love what you're doing. How can we help? And so they're looking at helping me publish my autobiography. They've donated towards the costs of, I have a modest budget of $500 a month that I ask people to help me with. And they've helped with that. And but much more importantly, they pray for me and they pray for the things that are dear to my heart. And Elisa and Gabriel, like with millions of others around the world, are two more that are in my heart, like SHARON and DROGYNE, Nathaniel Harris, the most unlikely people. So I suppose the bottom line, please share this. The bottom line is we don't need to all fall out with each other. We can have, like, I don't agree politically with DROGYNE or SHARON GALE. I don't agree in terms of 99% of everything, but I still love them. And that's what I'm trying to say, that we can find common ground, because the main driving force of the globalist agenda is divide and conquer. So we're all supposed to be at each other's throats. I feel so badly for that lady that's been violently assaulted at Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, which is a British institution. I mean, I can remember in my childhood in the 60s being told about Speaker's Corner, and where anybody can stand on a soapbox and just share what's on their heart. And to me, it's horrendous that a young woman, I can't remember her name, I won't butcher it, but I think she's a Muslim converted to Jesus Christ, and she shares her testimony, and she's been violently assaulted on more than one occasion there. So certain people are going to go out and support her tomorrow, her right to free speech. And so that's what I'm advocating. I'm not advocating tolerance of sin, but I am advocating tolerance of different opinions. And so the fireworks have abated, and I've got to be up at midnight, 12:30, probably till 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning to link with Talk TV, who are very much on the case of exposing child sexual abuse and particularly satanic ritual abuse, which is a thing. This is something that Sharon and Anne and myself don't see eye to eye on, but I know for an absolute fact. It's not just a thing, it's the glue that holds together the bloodline families. And Hunter Biden's laptop, if I say that quickly, it might not get bleached off of Facebook. But, you know, Joe Biden and his wife married 2 days after his first wife was killed in a car crash. Jill Biden was the nanny, and the bloodlines go back. Check my YouTube channel, Angela Power Disney, or my blog, angelascashes.org, and just see that this is not the Jimmy Savile, the Jeffrey Epstein, the Ghislaine Maxwell, the Jean-Luc Brunel, the Les Wexner. These people are not the exception, it's the rule. It's just been hidden. And 2020 has been the year when that which was hidden has been revealed and continues to be so, and that which is in darkness is being brought to light. Okay, Margie, hey, that's lovely. Right, so just, the better, because I don't advance, notify my Facebook lives, but please do share this in groups, especially. And, my goal was to cheer myself up a bit, because I've had a horrible 24 hours, and hopefully cheer some of you up and empower you just as I'm being empowered. And believe you me, when people pray, like I can have an isolated moment where I'm thinking, I'm the only one that's been through this shit. And then I can just about send an email or a message and say this happened. They're like, oh my God, that's exactly what happened to me. And I thought I was the only one. So rather than be those statistics that are drinking secretly or, in the extreme committing suicide or even murder-suicide, just tell someone what's going on with you. Just shoot somebody an email, shoot somebody a message, just tell them how it is, keep it real. Let's all stop trying to be super shiny perfect. Because these I've deliberately not really addressed the whole charade. Watch my video called Don't Worry, Be Happy. Because if people can't see what's going on and research Event 201 and research the Rockefeller Lockstep project from their website from 2012 and research all the predictive programming, the only thing I'd say is the Germans get a bad rep for the Holocaust and the war, but the Germans in Europe and possibly the world are leading the way in standing against the tyranny that is lockdown and propaganda. Like to have over 1 million protests in Berlin and to have 800 nurses and doctors come together to get the truth out. And obviously hats off to Dolores Cahill from Ireland and others. But I don't want to do a doom and gloom. I just want to say I love you. And let's not judge each other unless it's, you know, I always have a caveat: if you're hurting kids, you're on my blacklist, coming for you. But otherwise, you know, God bless. So yeah, share people and pray, do pray and reach out. Don't be on your own, in your own head. What is it they say? What is that saying? Never enter your own head unaccompanied. All right, God bless people. Bye.